his friends who would come to check on him every day, they couldn't get to him for a few days. It turned out that his health had gotten worse in that time, and because he was so sick, he couldn't do the things he would usually do to stay warm. He couldn't keep himself warm because he couldn't move that much. And so he'd gotten too sick to be able to keep himself warm, and so then he ended up freezing out there in his tent. And while Peggy was telling me this story, she was kind of telling me how the medical examiner came and got his body, and they buried him in a pauper's grave, and everyone just went on as if nothing had happened. And she was really grieving the fact that it didn't seem like anyone cared that this man had just died this way. Peggy just kept talking and kind of explaining to me what life is like for homeless people in the area, and how prejudiced some people are, and how, homeless people they're suffering and no one seems to care. We just sat there on the side of the road for the longest time, just talking and just hearing her tell me all about, how hard it is for people being homeless out on the streets, and how uncaring some of the housed population can be. This conversation, it really left an impact on me. I had been kind of indifferent to the subject of homelessness in the area. I was like, oh, if I see a beggar on the street, I hand them a few coins or something like that. And I try to do what I can, but I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. But this conversation with Peggy, it really left an impact on me, where I started to really notice it more. I started to see it in the headlines more, and I saw the prejudice in the headlines more. Whenever someone would start to complain about the homeless in the area, or someone would start to rag on the homeless and the homeless, it was just this phrase. But every time people would say the homeless, all I could think was Peggy. And it became, once I had a face and a name and a story to go with all this, it just felt so much more personal, and it felt so much more offensive to me to hear people talk about the homeless once I had a name and a face to go with this population. I wanted to get to know the population better, and I wanted to learn more of the names and faces and stories behind the homeless population in my community.